Welcome to WatchNut TV and yet another edition of What's in the Box. I guess the box kind of gives away what we're talking about in this edition, but if you can't read the inscription, we're looking at a Jaeger-LeCoultre master compressor US Navy Seals Diver Chronograph GMT. How's that for a mouthful? That's sure one of the longest names I've ever encountered for a watch. I've always been a JLC fan. I appreciate their probably movement manufacturer more than most anything else about the company. Um, they are probably, in my opinion, the best production movement maker in the world. And by production, I mean they produce above 40,000 movements a year, so they're not big, but they're not small. And they sell most everything they produce, so it's an interesting company. So let's have a look at this thing. This, for those of you who are reference junkies like I am, this is a reference Q178.T.677. It's a big watch. It is encased at 44 millimeter wide by 16.25 thick titanium case, and actually has a 1,000-meter depth rating, which is pretty significant and pretty substantial. I'm sure most of you who are familiar with the master compressor watches are familiar with the compressor discs that actually replace the screw-down pushers, which I think is a nice invention to JLC. Rather than having a screw-down that requires multiple effort to turn, these pushers just engage and disengage and are therefore water sealed by turning the discs that surround the push pieces in the crown a half a turn. And it's a nice convenient way to enable the mechanism and avoid the constant twisting back and forth to get the pushers or the crown to work. This is a big watch. Even in titanium, this thing weighs 6.3 ounces, which isn't heavy, but is a pretty substantial weight for a wristwatch. As you can see, it features a shot peened ceramic bezel insert, which has a really nice gray shade to it and complements the dial of the watch. The bracelet is 24 millimeters wide and is actually articulated rubber, which overlays the stainless steel core. And you can see how they've made every link in the bracelet sizable, so each one is removable and you can size it to really any size at all without having to dispose of extra links or cut them off like small wrist people have to do with some brands of watch bracelets. The clasp is a truly high quality JLC clasp. If you're not familiar with their work, they were one of the first, if not the inventor, of the extension link system, which just simply folds out an extra few millimeters of length by pulling a disengagement lock, and gives you a little bit of extra length those times during the day when your wrist might enlarge just from normal day-to-day activities, and then folds back in to its smaller size with no tools, no other adjustment mechanisms. This watch uses the JLC caliber 757 chronograph movement, which is kind of an update of the 752 movement from 2005, and they did this movement in 2010 when this watch came out. It's 45 joule, 65-hour power reserve, and roughly 300 plus parts. And the watch itself is interesting in that it's a reasonably complicated watch. Obviously, you've got a standard 3-register chronograph, and I consider the seconds totalizer a register. So I know some people would call that a 2-register chronograph. There is a day-night indicator under the 12 o'clock cardinal number. It flashes, it turns red for 1200 to 2400 hours, and it turns white for 0 to 1200 hours, so you get kind of a day or night indicator. And underneath that, below the handset and above the 6 cardinal number, there's kind of a running seconds indicator. It's not really meant to be a sub-seconds indicator, but it does just give you the indication that the movement is in fact running. And this watch also utilizes what I think is kind of a neat feature. I mentioned it is a GMT, I'm sorry. If you pull the crown out to the first position and turn it clockwise, you actually adjust the GMT hand, which pops out from under the running hour hand, and you can set that to whatever hour is necessary given changes in time zone. Really a nice piece of work that kind of goes back and hides under the hour hand when you don't need it for anything. It's a big case, as I mentioned. It is 16.25 millimeter thick. And it does have a substantial amount of wrist presence. Beautiful design though. I think the rubber clad bracelet is a really unique idea that JLC deserves some credit for. Yeah. All in all, really a super watch. Like most of the things I do reviews on, of course, this is for sale at watchnut.com. So if you'd like to see some additional pictures and get some additional information, please take a look. And before I quit, let me show you just so you kind of also know some history on this watch. This was sold by a US dealer in 2011, in May of 2011, and it is, I guess, really technically it's got a 2-year warranty, so it's still under warranty. And all of the boxes and papers are included with the watch, inclusive of this typically monstrous JLC instruction manual. It is printed in, I don't know how many languages, but enough that most people who speak most languages could be able to gain some insight into how to operate the watch if they're not familiar with the mechanism. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. I really liked the watch and thought it was worth sharing, so thank you again for watching.